Let's speak about commenting out some part of the code or writing comments. If you scroll to your top of the view controller, you see this yellow text, or depending what colors you are using for your Xcode, your text will be different color. But what is important for us is these two forward slashes. So if you see two forward slash in front of anything, Xcode recognizes it as a comment. So the comments are just a simple text information. It's not part of the code, and Xcode doesn't treat as a code. For example, if I put two forward slashes in my print point 1, and if I run, Xcode will just ignore this line and goes through and prints out point 2 and point 3, as you can see now. But comments also are used for developers to keep comments of the code. For example, let's say I want to keep some comment here, and I'm saying here I am calling calculate function if the text fields are not empty. This is a comment, for example. Or you can say like here, here we are converting int to double. So these are comments. Also, comments are very useful when you are trying to debug your code. For example, your code, there may be a problem inside your code, but it's the kind of problem until your application reaches that specific area, it doesn't show you the error. So for example, you see the calculate tips function here. I'm going to do something to break our application when we get to this part of the code. So I'm going to say var a is a type of integer, and we promise that we are going to give a value. Then I say a plus 10. So if I run my code, and let's see what's going on with our application. So my application runs normally. It points point 2 and point out point 3 is printed out. So if I try to calculate the tips amount, let's say 12, number of employees 2, and click calculate, and this gives me an error and it crashes my application. So let's see first our error report here. If I click on these 3 lines here, it will open my error, and it says thread 1, fatal error, unexpectedly found nil while unwrapping an optional value. So we have an error here, but we are not certain what is nil here, because we have some values here. Let double employees is equal something, let var a is an integer, then we have a tips here, etc. And we're not sure what is the error. But we know that we can use now our comment to isolate some areas of our code. So this function is called inside our calculate button pressed, and we are checking, and if our text fields are not empty, we are calling the function there. So if I comment out this function, I can highlight any number of lines I want, and let's say I want to comment out everything here. I can say command, and I click on a forward slash, and it adds comment to all the lines there. Or I can say command forward slash, and it uncomments everything. So now I want to comment out my call tips function, calculate tips, and if I run my application, even though our problematic area was not fixed, we are not going to get any error here, because this function is never called, and Xcode currently doesn't care if there is a crash happening here, because we are never getting here. So we have isolated our error area by using our comment out, because we know that the crash doesn't happen, and we have commented out this. So our error, our problem is somewhere here. So we have narrowed it down. Now we can use our breakpoints to isolate the problem area even further until we find our problem. So I'm going to put a breakpoint at the first line of my function here. I'm going to run my application again. And remember, I have uncommented, so our function will be called. Otherwise, we will never get this breakpoint working. So again, I'm going to calculate my tips, and it comes and stops where my breakpoint is set. And now you can see that we have some variables here apart from ourselves. So you can see they are green, and my variable a is equals to int, and you see the question mark here, which means it's an optional, so it may have or may not have a value. And then we have double employees, which says that it's a double here. Then if I go execute my code line by line by clicking this narrow arrow down, I'm going to go to my variable a, and now it still says that it's an integer and optional. If I click one more line down, it comes to this line here, but it doesn't execute the line yet. And you can see that our a is equal now to a nil. So it means that we don't have any value of our a. Unlike our double employees, it says that our value is double, so it's not nil, there is a value there, but our a is nil. And then if I click one more time, now my application crashes and we get our error. So we can see that our problem is on the line here, that our a is nil. So by using this, now we can fix our error. For example, I'm going to set the value to equals to 0. And if I run my code without removing my breakpoint, we are going to see that our application will stop on a breakpoint. And now we can also check that our a is integer and the value is 0. So if I click and go through the code one by one, you will see that our application is working. And if I just click on play the rest of the application, it calculates our tips to 0.5 here. So our error is fixed, and we found our error first by isolating it with our commenting out specific part of our code. Then we use our breakpoints to find the specific area of our problem and fix it.